to actually figure out, well, what is actually happening? How are people being compromised?
We need more data.
And your question.
Yeah, I'll try and be brief. This has been an idea that's been around for a while, but I haven't seen it implemented, and I don't know why. The bad part about TLS that we all seem to dislike is the certificate model in the PKI. So if we dislike the certificate model in the PKI, but we like, say, the SSH PKI, which seems to work fairly well, basically the fundamental thing is if I give my data to someone, I trust them with the data. So I should be remembering their certificate. If someone else comes in with a different certificate signed by a different authority, I still don't trust them. And if we did it that way, then that would solve a lot of the problems. It would solve the problems of rogue CAs to some extent. It wouldn't help you with the initial bootstrapping, but the initial bootstrapping would use the existing model, and then for continued interaction with the site, you would use the SSH model, which allows you continued strength beyond what we have now. So the model we have now can be continued to be reused for only the initial acceptance. So why don't we do this?
So I'm a former SSH developer, and let me walk.
We've got to zoom through this stuff.
Very, very quickly, every time there's an error in SSH key generation, the user is asked, please type yes to trusting this new key, or please go into your known hosts file and delete that value. And every last time they do it, because it's always the fault of a server misconfiguration. The SSH model is cool and don't scale.
And I would just add that what you're talking about is called trust on first use, or TOFU. And there's a project that I'm involved in called Perspectives that tries to leverage that to be less confusing than the pure SSH model. And I think it's a really great project, and you should check it out if you're interested in alternatives to the CA system.
Perspectives.
Is Perspectives just, because there was also one that was taking a look at the host from a bunch of different perspectives?
That's the one.
Perspective. Yeah.
That's the, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's John, and I've been doing security research for about 30 years, back to the ARPANET days when I was at Xerox PARC. So I have a long history on this stuff. And my perspective is that things are getting out of control and you guys are setting the bar too low. I really agree with the value of doing this. I think it's kind of a no-brainer. There's value to it. I support it completely. But I think you're setting the bar too low. If you're going to get attention, I want to support Moxie's position that you need to state how out of control things really are. Mm-hmm. And that's the education that's needed right now. This is important, but it's just the first step of a long road. And let me tell you, the computer scientists, there's a lot of good science that's been done. Computer scientists know how to build secure programming environments, okay? At PARC, they built great ones, strong typing, garbage collection, you name it. I built bulletproof stuff. I wrote the Xerox.com mail gateway in bulletproof code. Nobody could hack it. You know, we knew how to do this years ago. Where's the science? You know, where are people going back to that science and supporting that and getting that rolled out? We know how to do this as computer scientists, at least to that part. And look at web application threats. I mean, how is TLS going to solve that huge problem? It's just totally out of control.
Okay, so the takeaway, though, is the big don't aim too low with this.
Hi, my name is Luke. I work at a nonprofit attached to a university. I don't have any big ideas, but I just kind of wanted to bring up a small technical thing to keep in the back of our minds that so much is done on phones these days rather than PCs and whatnot. I think that one of the big blind spots or bumps in the road that we'll encounter is the fact that most people never update their browser on their phone. They just get a new browser when they get a new phone. And if they're the type of user that keeps their phone for 3 years, they might have a browser that's got poor capabilities that might break on websites, or they have
all mobile browsers I've ever experienced recently all support not only SSL but compression, and they have pretty complete experiences.
There's a larger point which is absolutely accurate, which is why are we ever asking users about patching? They don't care. Give them a system that works. Every user interface that has ever been designed around patching, from Xbox to Windows Update to Adobe Update to Winamp Update, they're all bugs. They shouldn't exist. It should just work. And if we're going to get HTTPS everywhere, there are going to need to be some updates to some browsers, and the browsers should just be updating. Just like they update their safe browsing lists to say, find out the new sites they shouldn't go to, they should be getting the latest code, and it should just happen.
Well, right, and we're not proposing that this be turned on tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And this is coming to mobile browsers just as it's coming to Chrome and Firefox and everything else. So it just, when it gets there, we want everything to be ready. We don't want any more delay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm going to go back to work and brag to people that Kaminsky took my side when I was arguing with Dark Tangent.
What's up now?
I'm too short for this mic. Hi. My name's Megan. This isn't exactly a technical question. It's more of an opinion question. But so you on the left obviously have understood the power that a good legal background or legal system can have in regards to computer security. Like sometimes it just has to go to court. What if computer security made the change not starting from the code but holding programmers liable for holes in their code so big that it causes people to be victimized? Like when a contractor builds a house and something is dangerous and it kills someone, they go to jail. What if the same concept was applied to programmers?
A bunch of code wouldn't ship till 2023.
Well, yeah, and we've been building houses for hundreds or thousands of years, so that model is fairly well understood.
Yeah, and I know just because I'm a lawyer, you're going to think I'm going to agree with you. And I am in favor of the Lawyers Full Employment Act. But that's exactly what it would turn out to be. The lawsuits would grind down and halt technological advances.
See, okay.
And then the software you buy would come from China.
Sure. Okay. Well, what about mass, like, I'm not talking about banks being held responsible for phishing attacks. I'm talking about irresponsible coding, like insecure code that causes people to be actively victimized.
But
2023.
See, the problem is that we don't know of a vulnerability, and tomorrow I'm going to go into a talk and I'm going to learn about it. And then the poor programmer who developed it yesterday is now liable? It's hard to get my head around that.
Well, and a lot of the poor coding that you're talking about is also known as malware, and it's doing what it's designed to do, which is, to create chaos.
Okay.
Maybe a better way would be to identify it as it comes across the line. I'm going to use the phrase deep packet inspection without fully understanding every aspect about it. But maybe the internet service providers can, and I know I'm going to upset two of my very good friends in that particular business, but maybe they could be a little more aggressive in making sure that there is good computer hygiene practices. I think we've got the technology that's readily available so that when my computer talks to your computer, even over the internet, there should be an exchange of data to confirm that your system is updated just as my system is updated, and we can have safe correspondence, safe practices. The technology's there. It just takes the public will to implement it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and one comment I have is that I feel like people have tried this project, right? I think most notably the OpenBSD and the OpenSSH projects where, people sitting down and be like, you know what, we're going to do it right. We're going to write secure software. And they tried really hard, and there were still bugs.
For a long time, years, they've been working on it.
And so my takeaway from that is that there are always going to be bugs. Software is always going to be insecure, and we need to just start with that acknowledgement and deal with it from there.
That to me is a fundamental problem. How can you tell deliberate from a bug in a legal sense?
I mean, I'm not trying to say like every little bug, but like massively irresponsible.
If you get my friend Rich down there who's the lawyer, he's going to want to know that.
Yeah.
Let's move on. We got only 5 or 6 minutes left. So.
Hi, I'm Brian. I work in higher ed. I think your scope of what you're trying to do is a little small because, in a lot of products that we deploy, I think the problem is more of what we accept from commercial vendors today. I think there needs to be some mandates with software that people develop and they sell, that it be secure from the ground up. It's really just not. You ask a vendor today when you're buying a product, if they have any guide to harden the SSL server or the IIS behind it for their product and whatever they've come up with, and they look at you. It's just, I think the task at hand has to be more of creating a set of mandates for commercial providers and developers.
I wouldn't disagree with you, but that's kind of outside of our capabilities right now.
But I mean, we have somebody here from I believe it was the NSA, right?
But what I mean is, I don't want to yes, we could do that. We could have another call for action for that, and better education and stem cell. Stem cell.
But
Why not? Fix that too.
But it's not. It's not just an education thing. I mean, I was at Black Hat the other day. I mean, the SSL is good. The authentication is weak. We have all sorts of tools for poor authentication. I mean, that exploit poor authentication. So, I mean, isn't it that somebody has to get after these people who are giving all these things to us? Shouldn't that be the task at hand rather than just worrying about SSL?
Oh, so you're saying why don't we have like a housekeeping seal of good of approval and code quality audit and?
No, but I mean, we can look at all sorts of the different products that people use.
All right, why don't you try
pick one
this
that's
approach?
good other than SSL.
Take this approach. It's called contracting. Build into your contract that whoever sells you a particular product or software or hardware or whatever, to your specifications, that it reaches a certain security standard that you judge. You're going to pay more for that. Are you willing to pay more for that security?
Yes.
All right, then do it.
But how
then do
about
it,
a
and let them pass it down too.
How about the general mandate that it all has to be encrypted? If you come out with a product today, it has to be encrypted as a foundation, not just.
Right, but see, that's a more general statement, and we're in a position where we're in a situation where there's more specific solution. There's something we can actually act on as opposed to another broader. Everything must be encrypted. Well, let's talk about that for the next 3 years. This is actually something that's within reach, and I just want us as an industry to grasp something and solve it, and then move on.
Well, what would it take to get the government to make a mandate that if you come out with a commercial protocol that you sell, that protocol be encrypted?
Then everybody runs free Linux, and they never have to mandate that, and they never have to deal with it.
But the people from free Linux are more likely to do it than anybody else.
Look,
I don't.
This is the bottom. If you don't mind me
Go ahead. Yeah.
Look, we have a lot of major websites on the internet today. People use them every day. They transmit lots of personal information on it, lots of private information. And you know what? Unless you're a nerd, you think when you go to that site, that's the site. And it's totally okay to give all the information. The only people who are seeing it is just the site, and everything's fine. Well, you know what? Everything's not fine. When you go to most sites on the internet today, you hope you're speaking with them. You think you're speaking with them. The technology exists to know that you're speaking with them. And the browsers are really meeting halfway to make it so you can know. But there's a gap. And the gap is deployment on the server side. If I want a site that I can access SSL only, I got Gmail, I got PayPal. Okay. Let's start talking about the other 99.9% of sites that are out there. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. Why aren't we seeing SSL adoption on a much wider scale?
Right.
I got you, but my SSL works today. It's the piece behind it that I'm concerned about. After I provide that information through the secure transport, what happens to it on the back end?
Okay. Well, we're almost out of time. I'd like some other people questions, but I'd be happy to talk with you afterward.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Sam. I work with a healthcare provider, and my fundamental question is, from a consumer standpoint, if certain companies that made steps in the right direction were called out, like this company has just implemented this,
exactly,
et cetera,
exactly,
and I mean, listen, like I tell the people I know, I tell my wife, my family, my family's friends that, hey, this company just has this, you need to use this provider.
And that's the example of using society to apply pressure. Maybe not through legislation, but through social pressure to do the right thing.
I think, I mean, if people in the know, people with the skill set that can identify when companies make good, when they invest their resources to give something to the consumer from a secure standpoint, if that's highlighted, if that's brought out by people in the know, and as opposed to, hey, this company just did this and their competitors have not. So it's a dual-edged sword, rewarding the companies that are moving and contrasting that with the companies that aren't. And I mean, how we spread that is, it's our responsibility to spread that because we're the only ones who can do it. But that's basically my overall comment, is because only a company's going to do something when it's profitable. And if it isn't profitable, the government can force them, then it becomes then there's a risk associated with it. But
the incentive
that's
model
awful.
would initially I would propose the incentive model would be peer pressure, and if that fails, there's 79,000 bills in front of Congress that you might try to muddle.
But if there's like a voluntary organization, Consumer Reports, or something where